Welcome to the Debrief. I'm Diane Macedo. Top stories this morning. Authorities are now warning about homemade bombs scattered throughout Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We will touch on that with Whit Johnson to find out what's going on. We're also taking a look at the latest in the search for what happened to that missing Washington Post columnist, what the Secretary of State of the U.S. is now saying, and also the new investigation into MoviePass. David Wright is going to have the latest on that for us. But first, here are your headlines.
A senior Treasury Department official is now charged with leaking information connected to the special counsel's Russia investigation. Natalie Edwards is accused of releasing banking reports on several suspects, including former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort. Less than 3 weeks till the midterm elections and new information about meddling. Twitter's released data on more than 10 million tweets by foreign operators dating back to 2016. The U.S. Postal Service is now offering a $25,000 reward for information on a pregnant postal worker missing for nearly 2 weeks in Chicago. Former USA Gymnastics president Steve Penny is in custody in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, awaiting extradition to Huntsville, Texas, where a grand jury indicted him on charges of evidence tampering in the sex assault investigation of now imprisoned gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar. South Korea's president has now delivered an invitation to Pope Francis to visit North Korea. President Moon Jae-in is at the Vatican and gave the Pope the handwritten letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
Mega Millions jackpot now $900 million.
I'm excited, and I hope I got the winning lottery numbers.
Welcome to ABC News Live. We're going to start things off with that growing crisis over the missing Washington Post columnist believed to have been murdered in Turkey by a Saudi hit squad. We have faced increasing pressure on the United States to have a more forceful response. The president seems hesitant to accuse the Saudis of the crime, and now we are hearing from the Secretary of State just moments ago, Mike Pompeo, saying he's telling the president the Saudis need a few more days. Let's take a listen.
There are lots of stories out there about what has happened. We just are going to allow the process to move forward, allow the facts to unfold, and as they unfold, as we make a determination for ourselves about what happened there based on the facts that are presented to us, the United States will determine what the appropriate response might be. Thank you all for your time today.
Do you have any evidence of audio or video from the consulate?
Terry Moran is at the White House to break this all down for us. Terry, this is a complicated one. On the one hand, we have, it seems, growing accusations that the Saudis were involved in this. On the other hand, they're a huge U.S. ally, a huge oil producer, and you can see that the White House is kind of hesitant to jump on that.
You know, it is a nightmare scenario for President Trump, Diane, for precise reasons that you just mentioned. On the one hand, he has really changed American foreign policy, staked his Middle Eastern policy on Saudi Arabia and its dynamic young new leader, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. At the same time, if in fact, as it looks to be the case, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman perhaps ordered, or people very close to him committed a savage murder in a diplomatic mission in another country, he's got to walk a fine line between preserving the relationship and standing up for American values against that kind of brutality. It's very difficult, and you could hear it in Secretary of State Pompeo's report there. He said, we're going to give him a few more days. He said he's been told by the Saudi leadership that there will be a thorough investigation and that senior officials would be held accountable. There's some word out of Saudi Arabia that some of the other royal princes are saying this guy went too far. That Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who's been an aggressive reformer and an aggressive actor in the region, starting this war in Yemen that's a humanitarian catastrophe, may have worn out his welcome with some of his cousins and brothers and sisters in that large family. One other note from Secretary Pompeo's comments, he said that when he went to Turkey and was briefed by the Turkish president, he also spoke with Turkish investigators, and they have taken the lead on this. So he's getting essentially the straight dope from Turkey, as it were. He did not say he met with Saudi investigators.
And I know the president has asked for any recordings having to do with this murder, video or audio, but it seems like they're trying to give the Saudis a bit more time. We even heard Pompeo say he's suggesting that they need a few more days to investigate. It's been 2 weeks. Is that reasonable?
Well, it's been 2 weeks. They've only had the heat on them for a few days as the Turkish government grew outraged and impatient as they unfolded what they believe happened in there, which is this murder and dismemberment of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. They decided to go public with it, and that now has brought pressure on the Saudis. I think they really want the time, though, to find a way out. However that's going to be, to blame, as President Trump suggested, some rogue element, some rogue general, an interrogation gone wrong, which then raises the question, where's the body? Why have they been lying so much? Or if they're going to have some kind of shift in power, that'd be a revolution in the region, and that is not likely. But they need time, and President Trump is giving them time.
All right, Terry Moran from the White House. Thanks, Terry. Now we want to go over to Molly Hunter, who's in Istanbul, keeping track of this investigation. We're learning some new details now about what may have happened to that missing journalist. This after the Washington Post published his final column overnight. Molly Hunter is there in Istanbul. Molly, we haven't gotten much information from officials on all of this, Turkish or Saudi, but a close friend of Khashoggi spoke to ABC and is sort of unveiling what he's learned about what happened, or at least what he says he's learned. What are we learning there?
Diane, that's right. Actually, our colleague Ian Pannell spoke with this guy last night. Now, when Khashoggi walked into that consulate, he gave his fiancée 2 names if things went south, and he was one of them. Take a listen.
Evet. They told me directly that Jamal Khashoggi had been killed using a barbaric method and that this was on the audio recording. Jamal did not deserve this, and no person ever deserves such a death, not even if he were the most extreme adversary.
Diane, so really some of those barbaric, grisly details that Terry mentioned as well. I just want to go back a little bit to Secretary Pompeo. So here we are outside the consular residence in Istanbul. You see the Saudi flag up there. This building, Diane, has been the focus for Turkish investigators. But I've only seen one of these investigations actually going on. Apparently there are 2. Apparently there's a Saudi investigation, which the Saudis have promised Secretary Pompeo and promised President Trump will be thorough and timely. But the Turkish investigation, Diane, is all that we see evidence on the ground. We saw the forensics guys going in here. We saw a drone overhead, but we haven't seen any official evidence yet from either.
Interesting, Molly. Also, I want to talk about this column. The Washington Post published Khashoggi's final op-ed in the paper overnight, and it's almost eerie to read in parts.
Oh, it's completely eerie, Diane, because he's writing about the freedom of press. Here's a journalist who believed so strongly in the freedom of press and then was apparently killed by the Saudis, not to mention in a country with a terrible record with the press. But I just want to read you one quote that he wrote, Diane. He wrote, "Arab governments have been given free rein to continue silencing the media at an increasing rate. There was a time when journalists believed the internet could liberate information from censorship and control associated with print media." Now, his editors said they were actually going to hold the column. They received the column from his assistant and researcher the day after he went missing. They were going to hold the column until he got home, but she said they decided to publish it now that they knew that wasn't going to happen. She also wrote, "This column perfectly captures his commitment and passion for freedom in the Arab world, a freedom he apparently gave his life for," making it even more profound that those were his last words from the grave, Diane.
That indeed. Somebody writing about silencing the media, and it seems like he himself has been silenced for writing about that issue. Molly, what's next for all of this?
So, Diane, I do want to just show you actually a headline of one of these pro-government newspapers. So, as Terry mentioned, basically for the last 16 days, the only information that we have gotten has been from anonymous Turkish officials. The Saudis haven't provided any official or unofficial kind of detailed public account. But on the cover of the Daily Sabah here, I'm just going to have Bruno show you. So this says, a little hard to see, sorry about that. This says the head of the hit squad. Now, this guy pictured here in front of the consulate, in front of the consular residence where we are right here, these are surveillance images that have been released by anonymous Turkish officials. It's the same guy, Diane, that the New York Times has named as a member of Mohammed bin Salman's personal security, and a guy that the New York Times reported actually traveled to the U.S. with him. So here's a guy who's traveled directly with the Crown Prince, and now Turkish officials, clearly getting frustrated, which is why, of course, they're leaking more information, have given in this pro-government newspaper pictures of him here on the day that Jamal Khashoggi went missing. So they pictured him here at the consular residence, at the consulate, checking out of a hotel, and possibly most damning, Diane, leaving and flying out of Istanbul the night of October 2nd.
You know, well, we don't hear a lot from officials. People are starting to put the pieces together as best they can with the information. It's not looking good at this point. Molly Hunter from Istanbul. Molly, we appreciate it. Thanks. And now to a new warning about mysterious explosions in a Pennsylvania town. Authorities now say there could be more homemade bombs spread around, ready to explode. ABC's Whit Johnson is in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, with the details on that. Whit, this sounds just completely terrifying. What's going on?
Diane, absolutely. I mean, authorities are trying to avoid an accidental tragedy here. These mysterious explosions were haunting this community for months, but there was progress. There were developments in the case. There were a couple of arrests. So people in the community thought that perhaps it was over. Now they're learning that's not really the case. They're getting this sense, based on their investigation, that perhaps there are more of these undetonated devices out there, and they're worried that anybody going for a walk, going for a jog, a child, a pet, somebody might stumble upon one of these devices, really like IEDs, and accidentally trigger an explosion. So let's go back in time here, because this is an issue that's been going on for a while. All the way back to April of this year, there were these random explosions, about 30 in all. People would awaken in the middle of the night to loud booms. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but there were some close calls. A township lawnmower at one point ran over one of these devices, triggered an explosion, but was not hurt. Ultimately, authorities arrested a man named David Sermon Jr., 31 years old. They searched his chemical company. They searched his home. Authorities say they found a variety of explosives. They found materials to make those explosives, a cache of weapons, even drug paraphernalia. They took him into custody but continued the investigation. And then just last Friday, they arrested his longtime girlfriend, Tina Mae Smith. And authorities say that Tina would actually drive around town with Sermon. She would drive the vehicle while he would toss these explosives out the window. Again, something happened over the course of the last week or few days that led authorities to issue this warning now to a community that thought that they were out of the woods, Diane.
Yeah, that's really scary. And so, Whit, what are people supposed to look out for if these things are just scattered around anywhere?
Well, specifically, authorities released some images of the explosives that they found in Sermon's home. And if we could show some of them for you, they described them as cartoonish even, looking like something straight out of Looney Tunes in some cases. One of them looked like a round wrecking ball with a long wick. Others were made with bottles and had strange labels with like a frown face on them. So they're saying if anybody is out and about and may stumble upon one of these, whether they're walking or whatever they're doing in town, they want people to not touch it, obviously, create a distance, call 911 immediately. The FBI is working on this, ATF, local authorities. It's a multi-agency effort trying to track down any remaining devices. I should also say that Sermon and Smith are both facing a long list of charges. Sermon, though, is also facing additional charges relating to child pornography. Throughout the course of the investigation, a search of his private computer apparently turned up some of these images. Both, however, were able to make bail and get themselves out of jail as they await a trial date, Diane.
All right, Whit Johnson there from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Watch your step, Whit, and we hope you and everybody else in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Very careful out there. Thank you. Now let's get some new details on that disappearance of a 13-year-old girl in Barron, Wisconsin. Police now confirm that Jamie Kloss's parents were shot to death in their home, and they believe Jamie was home when that happened. Alex Perez has the latest on that. Alex, how big is this revelation to the investigation?
Hey, Diane, that's right. Authorities here at the Barron County Sheriff's Department say those autopsy results have been returned. And as you mentioned, they now know that Jamie's parents were shot to death. And as you also said, they believe that Jamie was home when they were killed. And I'll explain to you why they think that. But first, let's backtrack a little bit. Remember, this all started at about 1 a.m. Monday. Authorities got that suspicious 911 call. The dispatcher could not hear anyone speaking directly to them, but they could hear noise in the background. Well, officials now say that noise in the background that they heard, they weren't specific about it, but that noise that they heard, that makes them think that Jamie was inside the home at the time. Now, they responded to that home just 4 minutes after that call to 911, and when authorities got there, Jamie was gone. There was no sign of the 13-year-old girl, and investigators have been looking for her ever since. There are now some 200 agents, investigators working this case around the clock, 24/7, hoping they will land on some sort of clue that will help them track her down.
Yeah, Alex, there's clearly a lot of manpower behind this. Are they any closer to finding out who did this?
Well, you know, we've asked the sheriff that several times, and each time he says, we want to bring Jamie home. It seems investigators are working around the clock, but at this point, there have been no credible sightings of Jamie. They're asking the public to jog their memories, to think back. They need help. They're reviewing surveillance cameras. They're doing whatever they can with the FBI, with state investigators, to try to find where Jamie is. But at this point, it seems, even though they're following up on more than 400 tips, it seems there are no credible leads just yet.
All right, Alex Perez from Barron, Wisconsin. Alex, thanks. And now let's go over to Australia for what I'm dubbing Royal Baby Watch. You know, we're going to be following everything the royals do until that baby's born. And Prince Harry and Meghan are actually in Melbourne. Today, they are meeting with very excited fans. And James Longman is tagging along and has all the details for us. James?
And we're down on the beach in Melbourne, of course, the latest leg of Harry and Meghan's royal tour of Australia. And take a look. Hundreds, if not thousands of people have been waiting in this city to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. We were up at the Botanical Gardens earlier, and I can tell you it was amazing, the screaming, the chanting. People do obviously want to see Meghan, but it's Harry as well. The girls screaming his name. I saw one girl in the crowd who he went up and hugged, and then she just totally broke down after he hugged her. It was quite a thing to see. Today, the royal couple have been spending their time visiting local initiatives that are close to their heart, particularly around things that I think speak to some of the themes that we've come to associate with Meghan and Harry, around diversity, around marginalized communities, around women. One of the initiatives they visited was the This Girl Can campaign, which is a campaign to help women of all shapes and sizes get more active. So we saw beach volleyball, we saw various different activities that Meghan was taking part in. And I think Melbourne really speaks to the strengths of this couple. It's a young, diverse, modern city, and people here have absolutely taken with the royal couple. Diane?
All right, James Longman there from Melbourne, Australia. Thanks, James. And now let's check on our weather forecast amid those devastating floods in Texas. Let's see if they can expect any better today. Rob Marciano is checking on that for us. Rob?
Hello, Diane. Great to be with you once again. And another day where we're watching this flooding across west central Texas, more in the way of rescues recorded yesterday. This one in Kingsland Split, where basically the Llano River and the Colorado River meet. So you're looking at really high water there and people having to get out of the way of that, in some cases, second-story apartments. And then this piece of video showing a bridge. We showed this to you yesterday, and breaking off, and today we see it tumbling downstream, almost like a whale breaching and slapping its tail on the way down. Violent stuff there. The Colorado River, this is the Buchanan Dam, which is draining Lake Buchanan, with 8 of the 30 floodgates, you see some of them there, now open. They may open up more, but they haven't done this in decades as they try to control the water levels of that lake, which they typically use for hydropower. All right, they're going to have more in the way of hydropower because there's just another day we think of rainfall. So flood watches continue at least through today, and then you see all those counties where flood warnings are ongoing. Another front coming down tomorrow that will squeeze more in the way of rain out. Locally another 4 inches, and then we'll finally dry things out, I think, Saturday and especially Sunday, Monday. All right, we said the cold air was coming. First lake effect snows of the season in Binghamton, New York. Yesterday, look at that squall coming through. Just enough to accumulate on some of the windshields and remind us that, yeah, the seasons are changing. Cold blast this morning with temperatures near freezing in even some of the bigger cities with the wind chills. Below freezing wind chill in Buffalo and Syracuse and Pittsburgh. And guess what? Reinforcing shot coming in just in time for the weekend. Pretty much the northeastern quarter of the country is going to be feeling more like, well, November, quite honestly, than the middle of October. So, told you to get your winter gear out yesterday, Macedo. Hope you did it, because you're going to need it going forward. Back to you.
Rob, My winter coat doesn't fit anymore. I was really hoping to not have to get another one. It's not going to happen. I guess it's time to get the old maternity coat out. I'll tell you who does have a coat on, though. David Wright is outside of AMC theaters for us this morning. MoviePass is now under investigation for allegedly misleading investors. David's covering that for us today. David, what exactly is the company accused of doing?
Hi, Diane. It is a cold day for the parent company of MoviePass. This is the card that gives you access to your favorite movies. And the company that took over MoviePass last year, Helios and Matheson, offered a deal that was too good to be true. They basically said that for a fee of $10 a month, you could go and see any 2D movie in any theater in the country, one movie a day for the entire month. You know, that turned out to be unsustainable. A lot of New Yorkers apparently used it to see repertory and obscure films, and they really hit a brick wall over the summer when the blockbuster season started. And interestingly enough, ironically enough, on the weekend that Mission Impossible opened, that proved to be unsustainable. It was a mission impossible for them to sustain that feature. They've since scaled back what they're offering now. You use this card through a complicated set of procedures at certain theaters. You can only see certain movies. They've had to scale back expectations for their customers and have them jump through a few hoops. But their share price has suffered, and the New York State Attorney General is now investigating the parent company, accusing it of fraud, suggesting that they defrauded their investors by claiming to have more money to sustain this program than they actually had. So now MoviePass is in a rut, and this card is not exactly the bargain that it was a few months ago.
Yeah, definitely a rough go for them. David, they're facing this investigation. They also have a shareholder lawsuit pending. How is the company faring in all of this?
Not so well. I mean, earlier this year, the company had a share price that was over $2,000, almost $2,500 a share. Now it's about 20 cents a share. So they're facing lawsuits from shareholders who say that the company, you know, basically took advantage of them and have run the company into the ground. This company is now facing a battle on two fronts.
And David, I mean, the idea sounded great. You pay $10 a month, you get to see a movie per day. And it was extremely popular when they came out with this. So what went wrong? Was it just too good to be true?
It was too good to be true. I mean, basically it was an unsustainable business model. They lured in the customers, but then they've quickly had to change the rules. Now you get a list of about 3 or 4 movies that you can see, some of them big first release movies, some of them more documentaries, more obscure, and you can only go to certain theaters. You have to jump through a bunch of hoops. You have to take pictures of your movie tickets and things like that. It's narrowed down, and it's become not as popular as it was because it's not the deal that it was.
All right, understood. David Wright from outside AMC there on MoviePass. Thanks, David. We appreciate it. Stay warm. And that does it for us here at the Debrief today. I'm Diane Macedo. Remember, you can check your headlines all day long, though, at abcnews.com or at your ABC News app. For ABC News Live, I'm Diane Macedo. Have a great day, everyone. I got to go get myself a bigger coat now. Take care.